I've worked the overnight shift at Walmart for 3 years. It's a lot of pallet moving and stocking, and to be honest, it's not a job that attracts a ton of attention. Most people don't come into Walmart at 2 a.m., and those who do aren't exactly looking for conversation. The store is quieter then, kind of eerie actually. The flickering fluorescent lights, the hum of the cooling units, and the occasional beep from a malfunctioning self-checkout are the only sounds. But one night, during the usual monotony, I stumbled across something that didn't belong. It was a patch of crumbling drywall near aisle 13, the auto and hardware section, that caught my eye. At first, I thought it was just part of the renovations. There was a lot of construction going on around the store, blocking off entire aisles with yellow caution tape. But as I approached, I noticed the rusted edges of what looked like a door. The crumbling drywall didn't reveal a new storage closet or maintenance room like I had assumed. Instead, it revealed a steel door, old and covered in decades of dust. And there, scratched into the metal, were the words, "Do not open." Now, I'd been around Walmart long enough to know that most of the secrets people talk about are just rumors. Stuff like the manager who disappeared in '92, or the ghost of aisle 6, but this felt different. It wasn't just some story. It was something real, something tangible. I didn't know what to do. I felt the impulse to walk away, but I couldn't. Something about the door called to me. And as I stood there staring at it, I heard a faint sound like knocking. 3 slow raps. Almost as if someone or something was trapped behind that door. Over the next few nights, the knocking didn't stop. It became a routine. 3 slow raps, like a message, every time I walked past aisle 13. At first, I figured it was just the old structure creaking. This place had been around for decades, and half the aisles were getting worked on. But then I heard something else. A voice. A woman's voice. Faint but unmistakable, whispering through the drywall. "Let me out. Please." I tried to ignore it. I really did. I was just an overnight stalker. It wasn't my business, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. There was a weight to that voice, a desperation that made my skin crawl. I brought it up to Darlene, one of the veteran cashiers, during one of our break room chats. She looked at me like I was crazy. "You're hearing things," she said. But then she paused, glancing over her shoulder as if she were checking if anyone else was listening. The first store manager, Mr. Hargrove, he had the only key to that door, went missing back in '92. They say he changed after opening it. That was all she said, but it was enough to get my mind racing. A missing manager? A secret door? I'd heard the rumors before, how Mr. Hargrove had been different after that year, and how people whispered about strange noises coming from the back of the store late at night. But I always chalked it up to nothing more than gossip. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that whatever was behind that door was more than just a story. And when I got back to aisle 13 that night, I could have sworn I heard the knocking again. 3 slow raps followed by a quiet plea. "Help, please." I tried to keep my distance, but something was pulling me back toward that door. The whispers were getting louder, more urgent. I needed to know what was behind it, even if it scared me. I wasn't a superstitious person, but this was different. Something about that door, that room, it felt like it was calling to me. It was a slow night, and I was cleaning the break room when I noticed something odd. There, taped under an old scuffed-up chair, was a tarnished key. I didn't think much of it at first. Maybe it was an old key that had been misplaced, left behind by someone who'd worked here long before me. But then I saw the label. Backup A13. A cold shiver ran down my spine. A backup key for aisle 13? That could only mean one thing. It was for that door. I couldn't resist. That night, when I was sure no one was around, I slipped the key into my pocket and made my way back to aisle 13. The knocking had stopped, but the silence felt heavier than before. The lock on the steel door was rusted, but the key slid in easily. I turned it slowly, and the door creaked open with a sound that made my heart race. Beyond it, I saw a narrow staircase leading down into darkness. The air was thick with a stench of rotten meat and bleach, the smell so overpowering it nearly made me gag. "Help! It's still down here." The voice was clearer now, closer. I could feel my pulse pounding in my ears. Whatever was behind that door had been waiting for a long time, and now it wanted something from me. Before I could think any further, I slammed the door shut, my hands shaking. The sound of scratching came from the other side, deep and desperate. I backed away, my breath coming in ragged gasps, my mind racing. What the hell had I just unlocked? The next day, I told Jeff, the store manager, what I had found. But the look on his face when he saw the open door told me everything I needed to know. He was pale, his eyes wide with fear. Without saying a word, he pulled out his phone and called a construction crew. They were there within the hour, sealing that door behind concrete just like it had never existed. "You didn't see anything?" Jeff said quietly, his voice trembling. "You hear me? You didn't see anything, or you'll join Hargrove." I nodded, too stunned to argue. I didn't want to know what had happened to Mr. Hargrove, and I certainly didn't want to end up like him. But I couldn't ignore the feeling that whatever was behind that door had been buried for a reason. And now, it was out. The next day, the wall had been freshly painted, the drywall smooth and untouched. But as I walked past aisle 13 on my shift, I noticed something. The cracks. Tiny, but they were there. Small hairline cracks in the new wall, almost like something was pushing against it from the other side. And then the whispers started again. This time, they came through the PA system, a soft, distorted voice crackling over the speakers. "Let me out. Please. Help." I froze, staring at the ceiling, my heart racing. Whatever was behind that door was still here, and it was learning how to use the intercom. It's been a few weeks since that night, and I'm still here, working the same overnight shifts. I've kept quiet about what happened to me, not wanting to risk my job. But now, things have changed. Jeff quit last week. The company's been promoting people, and for some reason they gave me the manager position. And that's when it started. I hear the knocking now. Every night. 3 slow raps just like before. And the whispers, they've gotten clearer. I thought they were just in my head, but I know they're not. When I lock up at night, I hear them through the PA system. And every time, it's the same voice. "Help. Please." I used to think it was just a story. A ghost story. But now I know the truth. Whatever's behind that door, it's still here. And it's learning how to use the intercom. Final note in Marcus's phone. Jeff quit last week. They promoted me. Now I hear the knocking in my office. Whatever's down there, it's learning how to use the intercom. The Walmart in Little Rock was demolished in 2023 to make way for new apartments. The new apartments have no basements, and somewhere in Arkansas there's a rusted key that keeps reappearing in odd places. I wasn't supposed to be there. Not that night anyway. I had swapped shifts with Mark. He was supposed to be on the stock floor, but he needed the night off to watch his son's football match. I didn't mind. I was used to the night shift at Tesco Extra in Manchester. The store was quieter after midnight, and most of the stock shelves were pretty bare by then. It was a bit eerie, sure, but it also had its moments. You know, the stillness of the place, the quiet hum of fridges, the occasional beep from a malfunctioning self-checkout. It had its rhythm. But this time, something felt different. I was in aisle 14, restocking biscuits and crisps, doing my usual thing, when I heard it. A soft, wet dragging sound coming from near the bottled water display. At first, I figured it was just the sound of someone walking with wet shoes or something, pretty standard in Manchester with all the rain. But then, I heard the whisper. Psst, over ear. The voice was low, thick with a Mancunian accent, but there was no one in sight. I froze. The store was completely empty aside from me. I stood there for a moment trying to convince myself it was just my imagination. After all, I was exhausted, and a long night of restocking had been taking its toll on my focus. But the feeling didn't go away. It was like something was watching me. I checked around, peeking down the aisles and into the stockroom, but no one was there. Just that unsettling sound. wet, like someone dragging something heavy along the linoleum. I shook my head, telling myself I was just tired, but I couldn't help but feel uneasy as I continued working. Whatever it was, I knew it wasn't normal, and I had a bad feeling it wasn't just my mind playing tricks. By the time I finished restocking aisle 14, I was still trying to shake the feeling. I made my way to the back office to check the CCTV footage. I thought maybe if I could see something on the cameras, I'd be able to dismiss the whole thing. Rationalize it, maybe. It's always the easiest way to cope, right? I scanned the security monitors, hoping to catch a glimpse of anyone in the store. But when I looked at the cameras in aisle 22, household cleaners, I saw something that made my blood run cold. A figure, tall, lanky, wearing a rain-soaked anorak, was standing there, running its fingers along the shelves. It looked strange, like something wasn't quite right about it. The timestamp flashed, stuck on 03:17 a.m., glitching repeatedly. The figure moved slowly, almost deliberately, touching each item as if it was searching for something. But then, it stopped. It looked directly at the camera. The hood was pulled low, casting the figure's face in shadows. But there was something wrong with it. It was empty. Just a black void under the hood. And then, something dripped down from the inside of the hood. Rainwater, yes, but it was thick and almost viscous, like it didn't belong. I felt a shiver crawl down my spine as I leaned closer to the screen. I was so absorbed in the footage that I didn't hear Andy and Sarah approach from behind. "Jamie," Andy said, his voice shaky. "What the hell are you looking at?" I jumped, pressing the pause button. There was someone in the store, at 03:17. Andy raised an eyebrow. "Right, and you're sure this wasn't just a glitch?" I wasn't sure, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. That figure hadn't looked like any regular customer, or even a staff member. It felt off. Andy, Sarah, and I decided to check it out. I'm not sure why. Maybe it was the adrenaline or the need to prove to ourselves that it was just a glitch. Or maybe we were just all a bit spooked. Either way, we grabbed our torches and headed to aisle 22. The store was still eerily quiet, the only sound being the distant hum of the dairy fridge and the occasional beep from the self-checkouts. As we walked down the aisle, we saw muddy welly, prints on the floor leading toward the stockroom. My heart began to pound as I followed the trail, the weight of every step feeling heavier than the last. The prints were deep, like someone had walked through a puddle outside, bringing in mud and rainwater. We followed the prints into the stockroom, the air feeling colder the deeper we went. The lights flickered, and there was an odd smell in the air, like the River Irwell after a storm. Then we found it. The anorak. It was discarded in a puddle, the fabric soaked through. There was something wrong about the way it lay there, abandoned and forgotten. I reached down to touch it, but before I could, the PA system crackled to life. "Cleanup needed in the alcohol aisle," a distorted voice said, garbled and warped. I froze, looking at Andy and Sarah. They both looked just as confused and spooked as I felt. This wasn't a prank. This was something else. We continued through the stockroom, and that's when we saw them. The handprints. Massive, dirty handprints on the walk-in chiller door. They looked fresh, like someone had pressed their palms against the cold glass only moments before. Just as we were about to leave the stockroom, the lights flickered again. This time, they went out completely. The entire store plunged into darkness. I could hear my heart thundering in my chest, my breath coming in short gasps. And then I heard it whispering just behind me. "Jamie." I froze. It was right there in my ear. But there was no one else around. I swung around, trying to find the source of the voice, but the darkness swallowed everything. I reached for my torch, flicking it on, my hands trembling. I couldn't see anything, but the whisper continued, closer now. Then the lights came back on, the hum of the store returning as if nothing had happened. But when I turned around, the anorak was gone. My stomach dropped. That wasn't possible. I'd seen it, right there in the puddle, but now there was nothing. Then I turned toward the chiller. On the glass, condensation had formed in thick, dripping letters. still watching you. Before I could process what was happening, the security alarms went off, blaring throughout the store. But there was no one to be seen. All the emergency exits were bolted from the inside. The police arrived shortly after the alarms stopped blaring, but they found no evidence of trespass, no signs of anyone being in the store that wasn't supposed to be. The CCTV footage from 0317 was completely corrupted, just a blur of static. It was as if someone had erased it from the system entirely. We checked the rest of the store. In the cereal aisle, we found a single size 12 muddy welly. It was the same print as before, but no one had seen anyone leave. Likely a prank by local youths, the officer said. Check the roof for leaks, maybe. They seemed unimpressed by the whole thing, ready to chalk it up to some kids messing around in the dead of night. I wasn't convinced. Something had happened in that store, something I couldn't explain. The next week, I switched to the day shift. It felt safer, more grounded, but every time I walked past aisle 22, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was still there watching me. Tesco renumbered aisle 22 a month later, but that didn't change the fact that something had wandered in from the Manchester rain that night, and somewhere in Salford, a puddle in a shopping trolley never evaporates. It was the night before my best friend's bachelorette party and I was running late. Of course, that meant I needed snacks because who could survive a night of dancing without some candy and soda? So, I headed to the closest 24-hour Walmart, Supercenter in Houston. The rain was coming down in sheets, lightning flashing in the distance. The kind of storm that makes you want to curl up in bed with a blanket and a cup of tea. But instead, I found myself trudging through the wet parking lot. As I entered the store, a flash of movement caught my eye. A woman drenched from head to toe sprinted past me. Her pajamas clung to her skin as she pounded the linoleum floors in panic. Her wild eyes locked onto mine and she screamed, "He's in the aisles!" I froze for a second, but before I could react, she was gone, disappearing into the maze of aisles. I stared after her, confused, but I brushed it off. It was probably just the storm getting to her. People get weird during weather like that. I walked past the self-checkout and headed straight to the snack aisle. My thoughts were still on the strange woman, but the allure of sweet treats quickly drew me in. The aisles were eerily quiet, save for the occasional overhead announcement about sales and low prices. I grabbed a few bags of chips, some candy, and a six-pack of soda, and then made my way to the cosmetics section. I had a wedding to attend the next day, and I was in desperate need of some touch-up makeup. That's when I felt it, the drip. At first, I thought it was just a drop of rain from my jacket sleeve, but the cold sensation on my scalp didn't feel quite right. I reached up to touch it and immediately regretted it. The substance was thick, yellowish, almost like ammonia. The smell hit me next, sour and industrial. It lingered in my nostrils, making my stomach churn. What the hell was that? I looked up, and that's when I saw him. There, crouched on the top shelf in the cosmetics aisle, was Timothy Blake. I recognized him immediately. He worked here, a 42-year-old stock clerk who always had a weird vibe about him. His Walmart vest was stained with the same yellowish substance dripping down from a syringe he was holding. The syringe itself glistened under the harsh fluorescent lighting. He was smiling down at me, grinning like it was all some sick joke. "Enjoying the product, ma'am?" he asked, his voice low and strangely calm. I took a step back, my heart pounding in my chest. I didn't know what was going on, but it was clear I was in danger. The substance he was dripping wasn't something I wanted anywhere near me. Before I could react, his hand moved, pushing more of the liquid onto a Revlon display, watching it splash across the bottles like he was conducting some kind of twisted experiment. "Special discount just for you, sweetheart," he cackled, the sound reverberating off the walls of the empty aisle. My mind raced. What the hell was this guy doing? Why was he in the ceiling? Why was he dripping that stuff on makeup? I screamed, and before I knew it, I was bolting down the aisle, my sneakers slipping on the slick floor. My legs were pumping, adrenaline coursing through my veins, but it wasn't enough to outrun the madness that followed me. I heard his footsteps behind me, the sound echoing through the empty aisles. Then his voice, sharp and unsettling. "Come back here. I'm not done with you yet." I glanced over my shoulder to see Timothy Blake leaping down from the shelves, his feet hitting the ground with a thud. He was fast, faster than I expected, and the twisted grin never left his face. The store had gone quiet. Too quiet. It was, like the storm outside had bled into the walls, and now this place was suffocating. I raced past aisles of horrified shoppers who had no idea what was happening. I could hear murmurs, hushed gasps, but no one moved, no one helped. I was alone. Blake's cackling filled my ears. "Special discount just for you, sweetheart," he taunted, his voice sending a chill down my spine. I made it to the end of the aisle and tried to make a sharp turn toward the front of the store, but I slipped, my feet flying out from under me as I crashed into the floor with a sickening thud. The impact knocked the wind out of me, and for a split second everything went dark. Before I could get up, I felt a hand grab me by the ankle, yanking me backward. But then, like a godsend, a stock boy appeared out of nowhere. He tackled Blake to the ground with a force that made me think he'd been waiting for this moment. "Get off her!" the stock boy shouted, pinning Blake to the floor. A few bystanders rushed over, pulling Blake away, but the terror wasn't over yet. The police arrived shortly after, taking statements and processing the scene. I was still sitting on the floor, my body shaking from the shock, trying to understand what the hell had just happened. Timothy Blake was arrested on the spot, but the details of what happened next were even more disturbing than I could have imagined. They discovered that Blake had been hiding in the store's drop ceiling for 3 days. He'd been using the extra storage space to hide and stalk customers. His locker held 37 stolen name tags, and there was women's underwear hidden in the back. It was clear he had been planning this for a while, but the worst part? The substance in his syringe was a mix of urine, bleach, and motor oil. Chemicals that he had been dripping on products and customers, testing his concoctions, as he put it. I spent hours at the ER scrubbing my skin raw, trying to rid myself of whatever had touched me. The doctors didn't know what to make of it either. They just kept telling me to shower and keep my distance from anything else contaminated. The whole experience left me feeling violated, confused, and disgusted. The sheriff's report was the final punch in this nightmare. Timothy Blake's excuse? I was just testing products. He was charged with assault and banned from all Walmarts in Harris County, but no charges could make up for what he did to me or the other women he'd targeted. I couldn't bring myself to go back to that Walmart, not after everything I had been through, so I switched to Target. It felt safer, cleaner, and at least there were no creepy guys hiding in the ceiling waiting to drop down with syringes full of God knows what. But still, every time I step into a store, I can't shake the feeling that something isn't quite right. I heard that they installed motion sensors on the shelves at that Walmart. I guess that's one way to make sure people don't get dripped on. But I'll never forget the sound of Blake's laughter. And somewhere in Houston, I know that a ceiling tile still smells like industrial cleaner. My name is Emily. I'm 18, a freshman at the University of Florida, living in Keys Complex, a dorm that feels like it's miles away from the rest of the world, especially late at night. When I first arrived, I had this idealized version of college life, thinking it would be all late-night study sessions, spontaneous hangouts, and of course, frequent Walmart runs for snacks and essentials. I didn't realize just how creepy late-night Walmart runs could become until I met Dave. Dave wasn't the kind of guy you'd normally notice. At first glance, he seemed like any other stalker. Middle-aged, greasy hair, a perpetually sweaty blue Walmart vest clinging to his round frame. But there was something off about him. I first saw him when I was at the store around midnight, grabbing some chips and protein bars after pulling an all-nighter. I didn't think much of it at the time. But then, I saw him again the next time. I came in, and the time after that, and the time after that. It wasn't just that he was always working in the same aisles I was shopping in. It was the way he stared at me when I'd pick out a product. Like really stared, for a little too long. It made my skin crawl. Then one night I reached for the same protein bar he was stocking and his hand brushed mine. It felt too intentional. I quickly pulled my hand back, muttering a quick, "Sorry," and he gave me a strange, lingering smile before walking away. I tried to brush it off. He was probably just being friendly, right? But I couldn't shake the feeling that it was more than that. That night, as I checked out, he stared at me again, just a little longer than normal. Something wasn't right. It was a few nights later, around 3:17 a.m. I was sitting at my dorm desk working on a biology paper that was due in a few hours. My eyes were heavy, my head aching, but I had to push through. The dorm room was silent except for the hum of the overhead light, and for a few moments I thought I was alone in the world. Until I heard it. 3 slow knocks on my door. Knock, knock, knock. I froze. I thought I must have been imagining it. My dorm was relatively safe. There were other students awake in the building, and I wasn't exactly in a sketchy neighborhood. But then I heard it again, this time a little louder. I hesitated, staring at the door for a moment. My heart began to race. I crept over to the peephole and looked through it. My stomach dropped. It was Dave. He was standing there, his unblinking eye pressed against the peephole, his face just inches from the door. I couldn't move. My body felt like it was paralyzed. "Saw your light on? Need help with your groceries?" he said through the door. His voice was muffled, but I could hear the strange, unsettling undertone. I couldn't breathe. My phone was on my desk, but I couldn't take my eyes off the door. I quietly grabbed it, fingers shaking, and texted my RA. "Dave is outside my door. I don't know what to do." I hit send, my breath coming in ragged gasps. The door handle rattled. Dave was trying to get in. I could feel every beat of my heart. My skin prickled. I wanted to scream, but my voice wouldn't come out. I could hear him mumbling something, but I couldn't make it out. Then, as suddenly as it started, the knocking stopped. I didn't hear his footsteps retreat, it was just silent. I couldn't sleep that night. I sat in my bed, staring at the door, my phone clenched tightly in my hands. When my RA showed up, about 20 minutes later, I was in a complete panic. She immediately called campus security and they arrived within moments. We sat in my room while the officers went through the footage. My dorm was small, so I could hear every word they said. "Looks like he loitered outside for 47 minutes, one of the officers said. "No legitimate reason to be on campus either." They pulled up the footage from the security cameras that covered the hallways. Sure enough, Dave was clearly visible, standing outside my door, looking up and down the hallway, waiting. "He was fired 2 weeks ago from Walmart for inappropriate conduct," the officer continued. "He shouldn't have been here." Felt a wave of relief, but the more I thought about it, the more terrified I became. I hadn't realized how close I was to something worse happening. He hadn't just shown up outside my door. He had planned it. But there was more. The police found his locker at Walmart, and inside they found disturbing things. A map of my class schedule, receipts from every time I'd shopped there, and, strangely, a coffee cup with my lipstick stain from the Walmart cafe. They even found a note, "I'm always here when you need me." The officer turned to me. "We're going to file a restraining order. He won't be allowed near you again." The next day, the campus police issued the restraining order, and Walmart corporate immediately banned Dave from all locations in Florida. It felt like I could finally breathe again. I wanted to pretend like nothing happened, to go on with my life and focus on school. But every time I went to Walmart after that, I felt a pit in my stomach. I didn't know what it was about Dave that unsettled me. Maybe it was his persistence, how he kept showing up even when I tried to avoid him. Or maybe it was his obsession with me, the way he had kept track of my shopping habits, my routine. It felt like he knew me better than I knew myself. I never saw him again. But every time I walked into Walmart, I couldn't shake the feeling that he was still watching me, waiting for me to return. I started shopping online, switching to Amazon Fresh and other delivery services. I just couldn't bring myself to walk into that store, knowing that someone had once watched me so closely. Life slowly returned to normal. I wasn't as paranoid and I felt safer as time passed. But something still lingered in the back of my mind. something unsettling. I heard through the grapevine that Dave had disappeared shortly after being banned from Walmart. There was no word on what happened to him. It felt like the nightmare had ended, and yet I still couldn't shake the image of his face pressed against my door, staring through the peephole. Then, about a month ago, I received an envelope in the mail. It was from an unknown address. Inside was a single sheet of paper with a message handwritten in blue ink. "I'm still watching you." I couldn't believe it. It felt like a nightmare that wouldn't end. I threw the letter away, but the dread it left behind stayed with me. I don't shop at Walmart anymore. I don't go near that place. And every now and then, when I see someone in a blue Walmart vest, my stomach drops. Because sometimes the most terrifying thing at Walmart isn't the long lines or the expired milk. It's what the guy who thinks your shopping list is his dating profile. Emily switched to Amazon Fresh. That Walmart got new security cameras. And somewhere in Gainesville, there's a blue vest rotting in a dumpster. I remember the first time I set foot in that Walmart. A nervous 19-year-old temp fresh out of high school, trying to make ends meet. It was one of those places where you never quite got used to the fluorescent lights and the constant hum of activity. Over the years, I worked my way up the ladder, temp to part-time to full-time. Assistant manager was the next logical step, but when the email came through at 2:17 a.m., I felt the weight of everything shift. Corporate had spoken. Terminate. Martha Jenkins, 19 WARS service effective immediately. Labor cost reduction. I read it 3 times, making sure I didn't miss anything. The words blurred together as I stared at the screen. Martha had been with the company longer than I'd been alive. She trained me when I was just starting out. Showed me how to use the inventory scanner, taught me the ropes, told me to never let the back room go past 100 items. I sat there for a few minutes, my stomach in knots. I knew it was coming. The store was cutting hours, laying people off, trying to save face for Wall Street. But not Martha, not her. She was a fixture, the backbone of the overnight stock team. She wasn't supposed to be part of that cost-saving equation, but I couldn't change it. Corporate was clear. If I didn't do this, I'd be next. I sighed and opened the break room door, feeling like I was walking to my execution. The break room was quiet when I walked in. The usual crowd was gone. Most of the crew had left after the early shift change. Martha sat at the table, peeling, an orange, her 20-year service pin catching the light. She didn't look up when I entered, but I could feel her eyes on me. "Derek," she said softly, her voice steady. "I'm almost done with this batch of oranges. You want one?" I shook my head, already dreading what I had to say. "Martha," I began, sitting down across from her. I paused, watching her carefully. "I just got an email from corporate. You're being terminated effective immediately. They're reducing labor costs." Her face didn't change at first, and I thought maybe she hadn't heard me. But then I saw it. The moment the words hit her, her face crumpled like a clearance sticker that had been left out too long in the sun. "Are you serious?" she asked, her voice breaking. "After everything, after I survived 2 heart attacks for this place, and my husband's in chemo, you're really doing this to me?" I nodded, my throat tight. I couldn't say anything. That would make it better. "I'm sorry, Martha, but this is out of my hands." That was the wrong thing to say. She stood up so suddenly that the orange she was peeling flew from her hand, splattering against the time clock with a loud pop. "Are you kidding me? After everything I've done for you? For this company?" Her voice was rising, raw with disbelief. I froze, watching as she stormed past me. The orange juice dripped down the time clock, a sad reminder of how quickly things can sour. The next few moments were a blur. Martha started pacing, muttering to herself under her breath. I wasn't sure if she was processing or just trying to hold herself together. But then came the explosion. With a guttural scream, Martha grabbed a nearby pallet of great value water and flipped it over, sending dozens of bottles crashing to the floor. "I stocked these aisles when your mama was buying you diapers here," she yelled, her voice wild with fury. The noise was deafening. the bottles scattering everywhere. I jumped back, but Martha wasn't done. She grabbed a price gun from the shelf and pointed it like a weapon at a security guard who had appeared out of nowhere. "Hey, what the hell are you doing?" the guard yelled, but Martha wasn't listening. She shoved the gun into his neck, and the sound of barcode stickers slapping against his skin echoed through the room. I backed away slowly, not sure what to do. The scene was spiraling out of control, and all I could think was that this was my fault. I was the one who had to tell her. "Get her under control," I shouted to the stalkers who had gathered in the doorway. 3 of them rushed forward, grabbing Martha and pinning her down in aisle 13, the household cleaners aisle of all places. She kicked and screamed, but they held firm, trying to subdue her without hurting her. I just stood there watching as the chaos unfolded. By the time the police arrived, Martha had calmed down somewhat, though she was still muttering about the betrayal. They took her away, cuffed and protesting, while I sat in the manager's office, my head in my hands. The store was a mess. Broken bottles, spilled water, and the lingering smell of pine cleaner hung in the air like a bad omen. The police spoke, to me briefly, taking my statement, but I couldn't help feeling like I was the one who should have been taken away. The next day we got word from corporate. They wanted a full report on the incident, detailing the situation. The official line was that Martha had become verbally and physically combative. They blamed her for the chaos that followed her termination, as if her anger had caused the entire meltdown. But when the police finished their investigation, they found something that made my stomach turn. In Martha's locker, they found every single pay stub from the last 19 years. The woman had kept every single one, as if she knew this day would come. They also found a handwritten note. It wasn't much, just a few lines, but they were chilling. "Corporate will betray you. You'll regret it." And tucked inside that locker was a small voodoo doll, a manager voodoo doll, with my name tag pinned to it. A few weeks passed. Corporate moved quickly to cover up the incident. They didn't want bad press, didn't want the community to see the cracks in their perfect facade. Martha was banned from all Tennessee Walmart locations, a final statement from the company that was meant to distance themselves from the fallout. But it didn't make any of it go away. I quit a month later. I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd betrayed someone who had once been my mentor. I couldn't live with the guilt of doing what I had to do for a company that cared more about the bottom line than the people who made it run. That Walmart's break room still smells of citrus, the residue of Martha's last act, a reminder of the price she paid for loyalty. And somewhere in Memphis, Martha's still cashing her unemployment checks with Walmart-branded pens, a bitter reminder that some debts are never paid.